Okay, we are recording, and Liesel Appel is my guest again because we had a conversation just a week ago that was so good that we had to do it again, right, Liesel?
Yes. You are
Well,
very, very nice.
oh,
Thank
you
you.
as well. You as well. And well, the reason that we're going to talk more is because we were talking about your memoir here, the neighbor's son, and your life story. And we really only scratched the surface. There is so much more to get into, and so that required another conversation. Um, so I will say, first of all, for people that haven't heard the first part of our interview, go back and watch that because we are going to talk, you know, to the point of the story that we basically got to from there. And then also, I want to say I do want to encourage people to read this memoir, but I am going to be spoiling it throughout this conversation. So, so if you don't want to, hear all the spoilers, please, well, you should listen to this interview, but you'll want to read the book as well. I don't know what to say. Um, so, Liesel, I think where I want to start, because we really didn't talk much at all about your experience in America. And that, of course, was a big part of your book. So, you married this man, George Brown, and things were going seemingly fairly well in London. You were living in London at the time. Oh, and let me just stop it before I do this again, like I did last time, and just say that the reason that we're talking is we've been friends for a while on Facebook. Um, we're both animal rights activists. I know Liesel Appel from the trial of our mutual friend Wayne Shung, who's an animal rights attorney and activist who had gone on trial for rescuing a goat in North Carolina. And Liesel and I met there. And since that, I learned that Liesel has this incredible story, and you can go back to our first interview. But Liesel, when she was 9 years old, learned that her parents were ardent Nazis, and that set her on this path to living a peaceful life, a life free from harm. And she became an animal rights activist and also battled apartheid in the Congo. Just this amazing story. But we sort of pick up there because you married this man, George Brown, and you were living with him in London. And at some point, I guess you got anxious and you wanted to live somewhere else. You wanted to find paradise. And for you, paradise was Florida. But pick us up from there and tell us a little bit about how you went from London to Florida.
Oh, definitely, I was looking for paradise, which seemed to be Palm Beach, which was the most racial place in those days. The richest place, the little island in front of the mainland, the island of Palm Beach. That's where I went on vacation, and I just loved it. And I had to relocate my family, not realizing that um, segregation and um, racial hatred was so prominent in those
Mm-hmm.
days. I thought they would all love us, myself and my black husband, but
Mm-hmm.
it turned out not to be the case. We were really, especially I was really hated. So we opened a business on the island of Palm Beach,
Mm-hmm.
and that became a disaster.
Yeah, it was a disaster. You trusted this man. It sounds like this sort of real estate guy or something.
No, he was an attorney.
An attorney, right?
We
Yeah.
met him in London, and he promised that he would take care of us. We could sell up everything in London, move to Palm Beach, and he would take care of everything. And he
Mm-hmm.
had only met me, he had not met my black husband when I hired him in London to be our immigration attorney.
Mm.
So this guy was really a crook. He was not just an attorney, but he also owned a real estate company. So when
Mhm.
people came here, they were just totally ripped off from the moment they set foot in the United States.
Yeah.
And then when you lost all your money, you were supposed to go back to where you came from,
Mhm.
which I decided not to do. George
Yeah,
went back and not I stayed.
mm. Well, so I mean, he went back, I guess, but that was much later because you guys did spend quite a long time in Florida trying to make it work. And then I think you
Yeah.
moved to California too, correct?
Yes, George went back to England, and I went to California. Actually, George
Right.
came to California in the beginning, and then went back to England.
Mm. And George had reservations about going to America from the start. He had a good sense that he was going to face racial prejudice in America, and especially in the South. Florida's in the South. Some people describe Florida as like south of the South, like it's its own thing, because it's not necessarily like a Georgia or Alabama, Mississippi. But yeah, so what was the time period that you moved to Florida? I believe it was the early 80s. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. In 1980, actually, 1980.
Hmm. So, I mean, you had spent your life battling prejudice, after learning that your parents had this prejudice against Jews that sort of was implanted into them by Hitler and the Nazi Party. And so I imagine that you probably felt like, you had escaped it and you had battled in the Congo, and then you were going to this place where you thought, oh, this, everybody wants to go to America, right? It's the land of hope and opportunity and freedom. And so that must have been pretty jarring to get there and find it was very backwards and not what you were expecting.
Quite, and I found myself on the other end of prejudice.
Yeah.
People were really discriminating against my husband and also myself for having married him. An interracial marriage was not really very done in those days.
Hmm.
It was, now it's very common, but
Hmm.
especially in Palm Beach. And he was not just an entertainer; he was a business owner, and the people could not take it. They would not
Hmm.
accept him as a business owner, as an equal.
Yeah.
So he's black.
Yeah, you described in your book some terrible scenes where you're running a restaurant and someone says, I don't want to eat with that black man there. And of course they didn't say black man, but
They use the
I don't
N
want to,
word. Yes.
yeah, I don't
When
want
I
to
look
eat with
up for
him.
my lunch, I don't want to see this
Yeah.
person looking
Yeah.
at me. Yeah.
And he sort of withdrew. It sounds like he withdrew sort of into his music. And so that must have been just a terrible strain for you guys. What were you what sort of considerations did you have at that time? Were you thinking about going back to London? Were you or were you very determined, like, no, we're going to make this work?
I never considered going back to London after having lost our money there. I couldn't comprehend doing that.
Hmm.
Um, and I was ready to fight. I've always been a fighter.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
an activist, so I always thought we could fix it. We could fix what's going on this island. I can't just give up and go away and let them win. So I
Hmm.
just tried to make a stand against the town of Palm Beach. They wouldn't pick
Yeah.
up our garbage because they said our garbage smelled. So,
Hmm. and and the
and I said,
garbage smelled because they weren't picking the garbage up.
yeah, it's been sitting in the sun for a couple of weeks and you haven't picked it up. Now, of course, it smells. So I
Yeah.
was always very happy to go to the newspaper. So I went to the Sun Sentinel in Fort Lauderdale. They sent a reporter out and they wrote an article. And then the town manager didn't want this kind of stain on his beautiful island. So he came and he said, I'll pick up your garbage personally. So the press has always helped me.
Yeah, yeah.
When something comes to light and the press writes about it, then things get done.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why we have to have a free press, which seems to be getting shaky right now with Trump coming up again. So
Yeah,
we talk
definitely.
about that a little bit later.
Yeah. Well, as you describe this attorney, like when it started out, everything was great. He was handling everything. It seemed like everything was going to go really well. Then you get there and things start to go wrong, and he becomes really hard to reach. You can't meet with him as easily. He's not really sympathetic to the issues anymore. Oh, who's that behind you there?
That's Tigger.
So sweet. How many companion animals do you have now?
I have 4.
4? Okay.
Tigger is brand new. He was rescued out of someone's cellar in Michigan.
Oh, yeah. So sweet. So you've always loved animals. You told me in our last conversation that when you were growing up, you weren't allowed to have pets because your mother thought they were unclean. And when did you start to have animals living with you?
When I came to California,
Mm,
I rescued my first dog, and my life totally changed to have this amazing creature next to me and this amazing soulmate. My first dog was Snowball.
mm,
So we loved and totally changed my life to have my own companion animal, family
yeah,
member, my daughter.
yeah. Um, so your relationship with George is starting to crumble, I guess, because of all the pressure that you're experiencing, all the racism that you're experiencing in Florida. And um, so your experience in America is just not going well at all. I and I wonder, why is it that you were so determined to stay in America rather than return to London? Had you just done London and you just wanted a new challenge, new experience, or what? What was it that kept you in America?
I was just digging in my heels, and I
Mm,
was not going back to London penniless and having lost everything. I was going to stay here and sue the attorney. Actually, I took him to court. It took many years, but I
mm,
did prevail eventually.
mhm.
I stayed to fight him.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
was,
you're not someone who backs down.
no, I'm not backing down.
Yeah. So yeah, you've been someone throughout your life who, when there's a challenge, you rise up to meet the challenge. And it seems that a lot of the people in your life, the men in your life that you've had relationships with, just didn't have that same level of determination that you did. Um, yeah, in many cases, it seems that you have been sort of the driver of um, the struggle against these injustices. Is that how you would describe your relationship with George as well? Because I know that's how you would describe it with Hugh.
Yes, he was ready to give up. He was not a fighter at all. He
Mm,
actually went into denial. He said there's no prejudice. He did not want to fight.
hmm.
He felt humiliated, and I felt bad for him, so I was fighting for him to really get
Yeah,
things changed. But it never changed in Palm Beach. I think it's the same thing. It's still going on over there.
yeah. And well, you live in Florida now. Do you
I
live in
live in
Palm
West
Beach?
Palm Beach. That's a big
Oh,
difference. Yeah,
West Palm Beach.
yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Trump lives in Palm Beach.
Oh, does he? I didn't
Yes,
know that.
he lives down the
Oh,
street. Yeah.
oh wow. So So yeah, and I do want to talk about our current political situation a bit because as someone who's been involved in so much racial struggle, Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, it's just it has totally nothing to do with your book, but I wonder from your perspective as somebody who lived in America at the time and you had been involved in the battle against apartheid. I still remember when Obama was elected and what a big moment that was. I wonder what that felt like for you.
Oh, it was an incredible moment. Oh, we worked so hard to get him elected, and I actually worked the election. So, it was a wonderful feeling to have him elected. Wonderful.
Hmm. When you say you worked the election, do you mean you were like a poll worker?
I was a poll worker.
Mm.
And when I lived in Asheville, I was actually an election judge. I've always worked elections to make sure everything is done honestly and straight. I just want to keep my eye on it.
Yeah.
I'm always scared that things can happen that are not honest.
Yeah. Well, and it seemed like that always used to be something that was very routine until recently, and now it seems like
Exactly.
you have to worry about those things with Trump and um, this sort of attack on our free democracy. Um, so, and I just watched one of the recent rallies that Kamala Harris did in Atlanta, and it seemed to have that same energy that I remember from when Obama was doing these huge rallies. Do you sense that same level of excitement with Kamala?
I do. I
Yeah.
really do. Yeah. I think there was
Yeah.
such a failure to enforce the law and justice just recently. It's Trump. A total failure. The Supreme Court failed, and many many lawyers actually failed. They're on Trump's side, and he doesn't seem to get what's due to him in the way of enforcing the
Right.
law and justice.
Yeah.
And
You
that brings me back to Germany too. Recently, there was the book that came out. I just have it here, Lawyers Without Rights. Can I show it?
Yeah. Lawyers without rights.
And
Interesting.
I think that's happening again now because Trump wants to change all that. It makes everything political.
Yeah.
Um, our um, our government should be totally non-political. I mean,
Can you tell
political, but not partisan. You can't just take care of your own people. You have to take care of everyone.
Yeah. Can you tell me about that book, Lawyers Without Rights?
Well, in Nazi Germany, Jewish lawyers lost all their rights and they could not operate. And this reminds me that's what Trump is planning to do. He's planning to change the laws and change the way we enforce our law and the way we enforce justice.
Hmm.
Many lost their lives and all had to leave Germany. So I'm just totally scared if Trump wins,
Hmm.
what's going to happen here.
Yeah. That's interesting because, a lot of people, um, I feel the same way. And I feel that there are a lot of people who say that, it's hyperbole, like when people are comparing these two situations that it's not comparable. Um, but I always think back to like how things got started in Germany, and it must have seemed more, uh, well, I mean, I know that Hitler's rise to power was full of violence, but I see parallels between the two.
Oh, absolutely. Hitler was elected. He did not just step in, he was legally elected by the German people
Hmm.
because he had convinced them that he would make Germany great again. The same nonsense we hear now is some other thing.
Hmm.
Make America great again. That's all this old stuff that comes from the 20s.
Yeah,
And
and
KKK used to use it too.
yeah, and Trump is talking a lot about, always blaming immigrants and sort of using this dehumanizing language towards his enemies, in the same way that is documented in Eternal Treblinka, the book that led me to you, into having this conversation, is just talking about um, how we often use animal imagery, animal terms, when describing political adversaries, and that sort of presages atrocities occurring.
We have to
And
really be careful what we say. Like you're
mhm,
like a pig, or we say things and we relate it to animals, and it's totally wrong to use
mhm.
that kind of language.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and now living in Florida, it's a very conservative state still. It's been voting very red in the last like couple of election cycles. You've got Ron DeSantis as your governor. I'm sure that you're not too thrilled about it. um, but what do you think about in terms of like, do you think that there's been much progress from your experience in the 80s, or do you think it's kind of the same place that you experienced in the 80s?
I, I, it got a little bit better, and then it's just reversed back to what it was like in the 80s. I think we have gone way back again.
Yeah.
We have made progress, and all that progress has been wiped out due to Trump and his and people lie. They're just not. I've been the same since I was a little girl. I've never changed on those big things. I've always believed in truth and justice.
Hmm.
But these people say something today and something totally opposite tomorrow. I just can't understand that.
Yeah.
How people are not such hypocrites just for power. Like we are activists and we don't work for fame or power or money. We just work because we believe we have to do something for what's right and just. And none of those things come into it. We are
Hmm.
compelled to work for justice. Like we
Yeah.
animal rights activists, we work for the animals. And we will
Yeah.
never change. We have to overcome cruelty and unfairness, and all of us are like that. All our animal rights community is, is like that. Works for justice and fairness.
Yeah.
Make
Well,
things
when the problem is so big as animal agriculture, for instance, for animal rights activists, um, what do you say to people who start to lose hope? Where should they look to find the inspiration?
in my lifetime, I've lived so long. I have seen terrible injustices wiped out and overcome, like apartheid. I've seen Nelson Mandela come out of jail, be a free man after 20 years.
Mm.
So we can definitely see a change. There's a Jewish saying, it says, do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief, do justly now. So we can't be overwhelmed by the enormity of the problem.
Mm.
We have to just take a step every day and work and never give up, never be discouraged. The biggest inspiration to me is Wayne, um, who's been to jail. He's and many of the others, like when all those friends we have. They're all so
Hmm.
brave, and there's they're not saying something today and something else tomorrow. They don't mind to put themselves in the line for what they believe.
Hmm.
Um, I've the, the best time I've ever had in my life was when I found these people and be part of it. They accepted me. They would wait a little bit when they move fast, and I'm a little bit slower. And when we had to lie on the pavement in San Francisco during the march, that kind of helped me up.
Mm,
It's just a great community. They're not just taking care of the animals, but of each other too, because they're
mm.
just good people.
So you say you were in San Francisco, you were doing a march and you had gotten tired, you needed to lay down for a little bit.
No,
Is that what you're saying?
we had a how do you call it? Everyone was laying down, like what do you
Oh,
call that? There's a word
oh,
for it. Um, Diane,
um, a
Diane.
die. Oh, I see. It would, yeah, like a demonstration of like everybody. Oh,
The whole like thousands of people were all lying on the street of San Francisco on the pavement.
mm,
Everyone.
gotcha. Yeah.
So yeah, I had a little. I was lying on the pavement. I had maybe I'll be marching again, and those things are so powerful. The flags and so well organized. You guys are so smart with the organizing. Even you with this podcast. Um, you guys are
Mm.
so
Oh,
technically
thank you.
smart, and
Oh, I'm not.
it was so powerful. And my grandson came with me, which was lovely. So the two of us.
Oh
But
yeah. Well,
yeah.
I'll tell you, my mother listened to our last conversation, got really inspired by it, and she's gotten your memoir as well, and she's currently reading your memoir. So your message is getting out, at least to my mother. So yeah, she loves it. And so yeah, so you said that like in your in extraordinary life that you've lived, your most joyful moment was finding community with animal rights activists.
Yes,
Wow, that's amazing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Finding that friendship and the like-minded people, like
Mm.
it's just pure joy. Animal rights
Yeah.
activists are joyful. I mean, we are not miserable people. We are joyful,
Hmm.
and we see every little creature as important. I'm in the
Yeah.
pool in the morning, and there's a little flying insect in the water. I just put my finger under it and lift the insect up, and they dry their little wings and they fly away, and I'm so happy.
Mm. Yeah.
They actually fly away out of the pool. I rescued them with my finger.
Nice. Nice. That's so great. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people don't realize like, you save like an insect or whoever. That's not a small thing. That's their entire existence,
Their
you
entire
know,
life. Yeah.
their entire life.
And if
And
I can help.
even if you're an insect that lives for one day, but you save them, they still got to experience that one day. Um, yeah, that's amazing. Um, yeah, that's very inspirational. And, you mentioned Wayne, and one of the cool things about working with Wayne is that you just, he's like a magnet for all of these incredible, brilliant people. And we got to have a conversation with Evan Wolfson, who is this very prominent
I
activist
know.
with,
Yeah.
yeah, the gay rights movement. And he was describing, he was trying to, teach us, you know, how we could succeed as a movement since the gay rights movement was so successful in getting gay marriage passed nationwide. And he said that one of the effective things about it was that it became like a party. Like all of these gay rights marches, rallies were like celebrations. And it's just like you just described. There's so much joy that people from all over the world suddenly wanted to be a part of this because they seem like they're having a lot of fun. Yeah. And I mean it, and
Good
yes.
against evil. I mean, God, that's a wonderful fight.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, we're talking about the like Trump coming into power. And I mean, when he came into power, there was that huge women's march right away. And
I was part of it. I went to Washington.
oh, did you?
Yeah, I
I'm
went on a
I'm
bus
not
to
surprised.
Washington.
I'm not surprised you went there. And
much every day.
yeah, and I bet you felt that joy and that camaraderie with all the people that you were surrounded by in a similar way. And is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
totally peaceful. Well, millions of people.
Yeah.
Started as a women's march, but there were many men too and children.
Hmm.
And the friendship and how well it was organized and so peaceful.
Hmm. So, that was a dark time for a lot of people who see like who want more progress than us going backwards towards a past that is not fair for everyone. Um, so it was a dark time, but did you feel like a surge of hope when you were surrounded by so many people who are against what was taking place?
Yes, I may put this on. Is that
Hmm.
okay?
Yeah, no problem.
I don't want to bother. Um,
Yeah.
um, I felt something is going to happen. We could not possibly, this beautiful country cannot have somebody like Trump
Hmm.
leading us. I mean, what does he have to lead us to? It's just disaster,
Yeah.
um, unfairness, and um, I felt hopeful after the march, but then we had to endure 4 long years of this man, and now he's back again. It's unbelievable.
Hmm. Hmm.
We endured 4 years of this guy,
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
all the nonsense, and we had the COVID thing, and he's so nasty. He's so nasty to people.
Hmm.
We are never nasty to anyone. We respect all people, even if they don't agree with us. We can still recognize their humanity.
Hmm.
No one is better than another person.
Hmm.
Like Hitler with his Aryan nonsense.
Well, I would say that you're better than Trump. That
Oh,
I think you're.
was I talking and you didn't hear me?
Oh no, I could hear you. I was just saying I think you're better than Trump. I'm just making a joke, but I do think that you're definitely better
So,
than Trump.
I mean, so are you. So are
Thank you.
all of, all of us.
Yeah, there, there's not many people who aren't. Um, so one of the things that we didn't discuss in the last interview, yeah, and there were many sad moments in your life story. You actually tried to take your life twice. You documented that happening in your book, and because we're talking about people finding hope in these hopeless situations, and um, you obviously persevered um, through those moments, and came out stronger, or at least came through them. But what can you tell me a little bit about why you did that, and um, whether it changed you as a person?
Well, I felt hopeless in those times, not worthy. Looking back at my family, I took that guilt and that shame on my shoulders. I felt I didn't deserve happiness. I didn't deserve to live. That's what I believed.
Mm,
I was so low in those days. I never had actually counseling. I've never seen a psychologist. But somehow I kind of muddled through things. My daughter is a therapist now.
who
Um,
is she?
she is, yeah. And my granddaughter is an attorney. I should have been an attorney if things would have gone normal. In a normal situation, I would have studied to become an attorney.
Oh, really? You had an
Yeah,
interest in that?
I've had such a strong sense of what's right and just.
Mm,
Yeah, tremendous sense for justice. I would have been a public defender or something.
yeah.
But I never had the time. I always had um, to move on and earn a living and do other things.
Hmm.
But I'm
Hmm.
proud of my granddaughter who's on the journey.
Yeah. And I mean, your kids and your grandkids are basically a part of you, and so
Yes.
I'm and so looking back at those moments that you felt were so hopeless, uh, and it's just such good fortune that you weren't able that you didn't kill yourself, um, because then you went on to do such wonderful things with your life. So I think the first time that you made an attempt on your life was when you were very young, living with your mother, and then later on, this was a really sad story that you told about meeting this new man. I think his name was Craig. Do I have that right? Craig? Yeah, and things seemed to be going so well, and then just this crazy situation, like nothing had happened, and then suddenly he got angry and he hit you. Um,
During a move, right? He was a perfectionist. He was a
yeah,
quality control manager.
yeah,
Oh God.
but it hadn't, like, it was like a mover, right? So they were
The
moving
mover
furniture.
moved his
He bumped to
furniture.
the wall, and then he hit you.
He hit me because I had hired that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was like a week before you were going to marry him. So you were very excited about this guy. You had such a connection, and then suddenly this darkness comes out, and then he left for like a week, and it, that must have been just a horrible time. And then he left, and he said, I can't be with you, or something like that, and then you tried to take your life again, and then he sent you off. I'm sorry, I should let you tell the story.
No, you're doing well. I,
Yeah, well, I
I've
remember
been
it very
trying to forget
well.
it.
He sent you, yeah, he sent you to an insane asylum
Yeah, he
essentially,
did. He
and
shipped me off there. Yeah,
yeah, so you
this
spent some
crazy
time
place.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, not very long, but it
because
was
your
crazy.
daughter came to rescue you from there.
My daughter picked me up.
Yeah, and and you also describe how you were in the ambulance, I believe, and one of the people said, "Wow, like he didn't even come. He didn't come with her."
Yeah, he
Yeah,
just gave me my purse and sent me out.
what was with that guy? He was very cold-hearted.
Well, he
I
was
don't
an
know.
alcoholic, and I
Oh,
think
that's
for an
right.
alcoholic, sobriety is like everything.
Yeah.
If they don't have sobriety, they don't have life. So I learned to work with it later on and see his point of view and also learn from it. He was
Mm,
like my biggest teacher because after that I really had to look at myself. Why am I picking all these men? Why am I can't find? Why can't I find happiness? So I had to
yeah.
start working on myself. It was not people out there; it was myself. It was me.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, and you met him at an AA meeting, but you weren't a drinker.
I
You were
wasn't
just going
drinking.
to the meetings because you liked the steps,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. Yes.
Mm.
And then I
So,
published the article in the LA Times, like quite a little bit after that, not very
mhm,
much after that. The Times published it on the front of their view section. So it appeared on people's doorstep. It was called The Awakening.
yeah.
It was a big article. And, they let me write it myself.
Wow.
And,
And you can still find that article. They have the archive of it. I found it.
oh, you did find The Awakening? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I forgot to link it in our last interview, so I'll remember to do it in this one. But yeah, I found that they still have it as an archive. Um, and that's so yeah, that but yeah, you just went through these incredible dark times, but you came through them all. And they would have done a lot of people in. Um, but yeah, it seems that throughout your life you've had these moments of like severe desperation. And I wonder if it's the community that you found in the animal rights. Uh, community is because
Maybe
like
huge
throughout,
difference.
yeah, I feel like maybe like throughout your life, you were just struggling to find community.
The right community, right? I didn't feel German. I didn't quite fit in England. I didn't
Hmm.
quite fit into the Black community. I tried to be Black.
Mm,
Um, I try to fit in, but I totally fit in the animal rights community.
mm. Yeah, yeah.
But
And
also,
you,
oh, go ahead, please.
yeah, and you just and you said in our last interview how like and you named this book The Neighbor's Son, you know, for your neighbor. And but you talked about how important neighbors are to you and that it's like one of the most important concepts that you take care of your neighbor. And and so yeah, you were struggling all through this time to basically find your neighbors, you know?
Correct.
Yeah.
But also, I learned, and I learned this from the Jewish community. Today, I'm an agnostic. I don't belong into any organized religion anymore. The state that, but I learned through the Jewish community loving me as well and telling me you have to let go. You didn't do it. And
Mm,
they also told me, look at your parents again in a new light. There must have been something that you learned from them that was good. It wasn't all bad. You learned something that made you who you are. And I had to look back and had to look at my parents again, and I credit them for loving me unconditionally. I was very loved as a child, and it's so important
mhm,
when you
mhm.
are a little girl or a little boy to have that love from your parents. And I think that helped me later on in life. So I never became an alcoholic. I never took drugs. So I always came through all my
Mhm.
misery. I always pulled through. So I
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
give them some credit for it.
Yeah. I mean, and
I learned that.
you mentioned one piece of wisdom that your father imparted on you, which was to question everything for yourself.
Yes.
And you described using that against him because of his Nazi ideology that you weren't aware of when you were a child. And um, but yeah, and then realizing that you can question your parents too. Um, yeah. And yeah, we talked a little bit about how you wrote your book for your mother, basically, because you felt you had done her wrong throughout your life. Um, but we didn't talk about that at the sort of towards the end of your mother's life. You were starting to come back around, and you were sort of. It seemed in the way you write it that you were realizing that you may want to see your mother again. Uh, and it's just horrible timing because you called her up and um, she was, you know, not fully cognizant, I think, but she was asking where are you? And so it sounded like you were moments away from going to see her, or weeks or maybe a few months or so, but then the timing didn't work.
Well, I
And
was
I'm
stuck
sorry, I
with
know this is,
immigration, right? I couldn't
oh,
leave
it
the
was,
country, right?
oh, it
I
was an
couldn't come back
immigration
if I
issue.
left. Yeah.
Oh,
Took me a long time to get my immigration done.
I see, I see.
Didn't get it until I became a citizen in 2000.
Oh, I
So it
see.
took a long time. And those years, I didn't even have paperwork
Yeah.
because the first immigration attorney, the guy from Palm Beach, he messed it all up and no one could fix it.
Yeah. And he and that attorney, it sounded like he was scamming people left and
Yeah,
right.
yes,
But he also did have he sort of did a double take when he saw your husband was black. Um he's I don't know if he was racist or not, but he seemed to note it, right?
yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
he Yeah, I mean, I guess it was more surprising in those days, I guess, and this Palm Beach community was so white, it sounds like.
Yes.
Very of a kind of a ritzy white community that you moved to. Um, yeah, you might have, had you moved to Asheville, maybe you'd have had a better time. Started out in Asheville. What was your impression of Asheville? I know you lived here for about 8 years or so.
Yeah, 7 or 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very lovely.
Mm.
Very cold in winter.
Were you craving the beach and the summers, and that's why you went back to Florida?
Yeah, my son lives here in Florida too, and I really
Mm.
wanted to be close to him as I get older.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we got to
but
see him last time.
yeah,
Hugh
it
came
was-
by and you guys had some lunch together, I think. Yeah. That was
but
nice
Asheville is
to,
a lovely city. Asheville is lovely. I love. Can you say hi?
yeah.
Come
And
on.
that's where we met. I mean, I guess we met in
Lovely, nice.
Transylvania County. Who's this?
This is spirit. Say hi.
Oh. Can you say their name again?
Her, her name is Spirit.
Spirit. Oh, okay. I think I saw Spirit in the interview that Jeff did with you, Vegan Linked.
Oh, yeah, she can.
Yeah. So Spirit, yeah. I wish my channel were bigger so that Spirit could become famous, but it's just going to be a few people here.
Show your face. She has a kind of a crooked little mouth.
Oh yeah,
Bobby.
it's adorable.
I
She
took
wanted
the
to.
one that no one wanted. They said you adopted an ugly rat, they told me when I adopted
Oh,
her. She's
an
so
ugly
beautiful.
rat.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, she's beautiful.
she's
So
beautiful.
sweet.
I took the one that no one wanted.
Did you have a special place in your heart for her because no one else wanted her?
Right, I went to these dogs were rescued out of the Everglades.
Hmm.
People drive there and they throw out the dogs to fend for themselves with the snakes and alligators.
Yeah.
The rescue groups go and pick them up, and I just said I want to take the one that no one wants
Hmm.
or has a difficulty finding a home. She
Yeah.
was very young. She was not even a year old. I've had her 10 years.
Mm. She's so sweet, huh?
She's so sweet. And I have a cat as well.
Yeah.
Cat was in the tree, and then the two out of Michigan, the new ones.
Oh yeah, yeah.
My grandson actually drove to Michigan to rescue them out of someone's cellar.
Oh wow. And they were being neglected, I assume.
Yeah, they never saw daylight. They were just in this basement for 3 or 4 years.
Oh, that's so sad.
It's so sad. And they're
Yeah.
beautiful cats. They call it Tigger and Zorro. And now they
Yeah.
watch the birds. They have
Yeah.
windows and
Yeah. Yeah. And they love the sunlight, and
they need
looking
it.
at birds and
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's just like similar to like how most animals are treated, that they don't see the sunlight. Most animals on this planet, other than I think marine life, are chickens now, because we breed so many chickens to kill and eat. And so I saw, it was I can't remember who the quote was from, but it's a great quote, and it basically said something like, the average lived experience on this planet is the life of a factory farm chicken, and it's a horrible existence.
Horrible.
Yeah.
What about the whales? The turkey tail we had stuck in the Miami aquarium for 58 years.
Yeah.
Remember that? She was taken as a baby whale from Puget Sound, the
Yeah.
Salish Sea, and stuck in the Miami aquarium for 58 years.
58 years. Yeah.
She never saw her family again. She was making these sounds, calling for them, and we were finally getting her out. I went down there, and demonstrated, like mostly on weekends. Then she just died not too long ago.
I have this book right here. This is a very interesting book. It's a Fear of the Animal Planet, the hidden history of animal resistance. And
Okay.
it talks about how we don't really talk much about how animals fight back for themselves. So this is a story about how animals are fighting for their own liberation, and it talks a lot about the orcas, the killer whales, because there have been so many instances where they've attacked, um, their trainers, quote unquote, because they're very unhappy. Of course, they want freedom, and so yeah, there have been major accidents with keeping these killer whales in little tanks, and they would swim for so many hundreds of miles and hundreds of millions of miles or whatever, and yet they're in this little tank, and they're very social creatures too. And yeah, uh it's so horrible. I want to mention too, since we're doing this interview at the time when Paul Watson is in
Yes,
jail.
I saw it. Yes,
Yeah. So I just want to make sure we mention him, because um,
absolutely.
there are things that people can do. They can contact, well, for one, they can go to freepaulwatson.org and sign a petition for the Danish Ministry of Justice, I believe, who is going to make the decision on whether he'll be extradited to Japan, because Japan wants to throw him in prison so that they can keep killing whales illegally. Yeah, it's so horrible. And I saw on social media just the other day that Japan has already killed a fin whale. And this is what Watson was going out there to stop. Um, so yeah, and so yeah, right now Watson is being denied freedom. He can't see sunlight probably, and he's facing prison for the rest of his life. He's an elderly man, and if they throw him behind bars, it could be for the rest of his life. Um, but he's also another inspiration. He's like a guy like Wayne, who puts himself between the people harming animals and puts his life on the line for that. So definitely a real inspiration to me and a lot of other people. Um, but yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the whales, because that's so relevant down in Florida. And
It's for entertainment. I mean, how could that be entertaining?
yeah, I know.
To watch a captured animal like that for 58 years
Didn't they shut down the Miami Seaquarium
being
just
being
recently?
shut down.
Yeah.
They lost their
Yeah.
license. I was down there.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was this viral video of a walrus, right? That was swimming around in a little tank, and it was just so heartbreaking to see. And luckily, um, I guess the media did help in that
Oh,
instance, but
the
usually,
dolphin. There was one dolphin left, the little dolphin.
oh, was there a dolphin?
Yeah, it was
Oh,
taken out. Yeah.
oh, wow.
They closed it down now.
Yeah.
They lost their license.
So as an
And,
activist, oh,
no,
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, I was
No,
just going to say, as an activist in Florida, that's like one of the things that Florida activists can focus on, is these like, SeaWorld places. And
yes.
yeah, because you don't see those in like North Carolina, for instance. I guess they have some stuff, they have zoos and stuff, but not so much the marine stuff. Um, yeah. Um, so did you do a lot of demonstrations over the years related to Miami
Takoche, yeah.
Seaquarium? Yeah, yeah.
We were very close to having her taken out because many taken her to sanctuary because there was a lot of money raised for that. And
Mm,
then she just died suddenly. It was such a shock.
yeah.
And then
What
they
is
carved her up. They took her to Duke University.
mm,
And the native tribes, they wanted to keep her whole. they consider her a relative. The whales are the relatives of this tribe. But they got her back in pieces, just chopped up, taken out all the bones. It's just, people are so cruel.
Yeah, it's so cruel.
Nazi. Yeah, so cruel.
Yeah, it's over the years of your animal rights activism, are there any moments that really stand out to you as like the most meaningful moments for you or impactful?
Chokotay, her death and her suffering definitely stands out. The march with rain I did in San Francisco definitely stands out. I've done many, many other marches against the cosmetic industry. When they were having seminars, we would demonstrate outside. And I've done so many of these all through my life. But the latest one, the most heart-wrenching one, was Chokotay's death after 58 years in the tank.
Yeah.
It was so terrible. So could not function for several days. So distraught over it.
I mean, activists have been trying so long, and that's just one of those things where, yeah, I imagine it felt sort of powerless because you're just trying to change someone's mind, I guess, someone in power who's, doesn't care.
Only care about money. It's only
right.
Care about the money.
Yeah.
She made so many millions of dollars with these owners. How could you own a creature like that, a wild, beautiful creature? And her mother is still alive in the Salish Sea. She's 98 years old. So we're hoping to get Chokotay back to her tribe. Although that could not have happened because of infection. They would have had to keep her separate. But at least she would have been back in the sea.
Yeah, back in the sea, at least where she belonged.
Where she
belonged. I have a question for you from your book, which I found very interesting because I remember when I called you to ask if you wanted to do the interview, and I mispronounced your name as Apple. I think I said, "Hey, is this Liesel or Liesel? Is this Liesel Apple?" And I had mispronounced your name. So your name, Appel, like if you didn't know how it was pronounced, you might say Apple. But then I was reading in your book, and the store that you had opened up before you even took the name Appel was Liesel's Apple. Like, you've got to be pulling my leg right now. That's too coincidental.
Yeah.
So you ran a store called Liesel's Apple.
Correct.
And it was like a health food store.
Yes.
And this was, you were, I think, Liesel Steffens, I guess, at the time, or I'm not sure which last name you had at the time, but you weren't Liesel Appel yet.
No.
So you met a man, a Jewish man, I believe. His name is Don Appel, and married him. And did you just marry Don because of the name? Is that what happened?
No, he wooed me. He gave me a lovely ring, and
oh yeah.
And he passed away 5 years ago.
Okay. And that's an interesting circle that you did, where you were raised in Nazi Germany. You met that Jewish man at 9 years old, and you eventually converted to Judaism and married a Jewish man, and where's really
married
embraced.
A black man, and I covered all my bases.
You covered. Well, you're gonna.
I'm covered.
That's not all the bases. You still got work to do.
I'm done with men.
You're done with men.
Yeah,
You're just gonna hang around with your kids and your pups and your
that's
cats now,
right.
huh?
Yeah.
But that's just such a funny coincidence to me that you had Liesel's apple and then you became Liesel Appel.
Yeah.
Did you notice that coincidence before I said it? I'm sure you did.
Yeah. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we should talk about we mentioned part of the healing that you had when you were at this meeting and you basically said to this Jewish woman, I think her name was Rachel, that you met, that yeah, no, my parents did this, and it was still kind of a cold relationship. It sounds like between you and Rachel, like it didn't really warm up because she was still hurting, but the other Jewish members of the community really embraced you, and you alluded to that already in our conversation today about how they said, you have to let go. It wasn't you. But as sort of this struggle that you had throughout your life to find community, it sounds like you did find community also with the Jewish community.
Yes, I did. But organized religion doesn't really work for me.
Yeah. Did you dabble with organized religion for a while, or?
I was always a seeker. I was always studying different religions. Baha'i as well. The Baha'i religion is great. They say the world is but one country and mankind its citizens. I could
Mm,
really relate to that. And they're like all religions. So Baha'i was something I was also studying, but I consider myself an agnostic right now.
yeah, yeah. Well, you had mentioned this rabbi who convinced you to write a children's novel.
Yeah, he's from
And
Asheville. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, because like you said in this book, this is a pretty steamy book actually. There's a
I
lot of
know.
sex and
Yeah, he said he called me into his study.
yeah.
I said, Rabbi, what did I do? He said, can you take the sex out?
Can you take the sex? Well, you're just telling your story, and
Make it
yeah.
make it for children. So the children's book has more historical facts and the sex is gone.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
Oh
it's
my
it's a
God.
very interesting story, and your first sexual experience was actually with a woman,
Yeah,
and
it's
yeah,
true.
and oh yeah, and another thing that
Oh
we
my
didn't,
God.
I know I'm really bad at telling a seamless story. I know because I'm just bouncing around to whatever comes in my brain, but we also didn't mention uh, that you found out who actually saved the neighbor's baby when he was thrown from the balcony. You learned who it was who rescued him, and it was this guy,
Friedrich
Johann
Sommer.
Friedrich
Friedrich Sommer.
Sommer, yeah, he ran a
He had
little
a movie.
cinema.
He had a cinema next door, and my mother and my parents, when my father was alive, they had told me, "Don't go near this man. He's bad with little girls. Don't be alone with him. Don't go near him." But I used to sneak into his cinema. I always liked this man. But I had no idea he was actually the hero who saved, caught the little Jewish boy in his arms.
Hmm.
He opened his arms and caught the boy under the balcony.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
so
for the summer.
so you didn't know all throughout your childhood. You always liked the guy, sounds like, but yeah, they were
He was
warning you.
defamed by the community. He was an outcast. And so
Yeah.
was the lady who hit the boy. Her name is Johanna Banner.
Hmm.
She hit the little Edgar, and she was also an outcast. I
Hmm.
was an outcast in Bottrop all these years. So the book is really kind of old. Since then, um, I've gone back to I was invited and I made my speech in my hometown, and all the schools. I went to all the schools to teach them about neighbors and what happened in their neighborhood.
Wow.
I have a
So
book out in German too,
yeah.
but the publisher was threatened. So Germany still they want to put this behind them. They don't want to hear too much about it.
Hmm.
And the publisher was actually threatened by different people who didn't want the book to come out.
Wow.
So I actually wrote to Angela Merkel. I said, this can't be allowed in Germany. The publisher can't. It's like book banning here. They were banning my book in Germany. The German book is much better than the one in English. The one
Oh,
in
is it?
English has many glitches in it. The German book is good.
Mm.
So, yeah, so Angela Merkel sent somebody out there to investigate. She was great.
Wow.
To my
So,
hometown. I said, we
so
don't have free press in Germany. My book can't
that's
come
really
out.
incredible. Like
Yeah, she
another
was a
amazing part of your
great.
story.
Yeah, she's a great lady.
Well, because
So,
mostly when you write a letter to the president, you don't expect them to receive it. So so she did,
she
and
sent an
she intervened.
investigator. Yeah, she intervened.
Wow. And so then it got published, and then you were invited, and you gave talks, and
I gave
that's
talks, and many books were sold during the talk. But then it
mhm.
kind of fell down again in my hometown. They didn't want to really hear about it. It was just the
Mm.
one time. It was really good. I actually had a little band that came together. They were making beautiful songs.
Oh
It was like
wow.
a whole production. Michelle came from London and she was there. And my nephew was there, my brother's son.
Mm.
And then it went away again.
Hmm.
So it was just the one time. But then I recently heard that they want to um, do a memorial in my hometown for the Meyer family.
Oh wow.
So in the archives, so maybe it's not totally dead over there.
Hmm. Well, that is quite a turnaround from the community that you were describing to them. Suddenly, you're giving talks, and yeah, I
In
mean,
all the schools, it was very nice.
yeah, and you know how impressionable kids are, so and you know they're gonna remember that. I'm sure they're gonna remember. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess I could understand Germany wanting to put it behind them, but it's dangerous because we don't learn from our mistakes in history. Then how are we'll be doomed to repeat them, you know?
Yes.
It's a famous saying, yeah. So, but that's interesting that Angela Merkel intervened. And so Angela seems to take the other approach that um, she doesn't want to move past it. Is
She was
that
incredible. When you go,
mm,
have you been to Berlin?
I have not, no.
When you go to Berlin, where Hitler's bunker was, there's a parking lot. There's not a plaque or anything that this was where Hitler's bunker stood. There's
Mm,
just grass at the parking lot. There were no signs or any kind of um, remembrance of Hitler. Then it's like the man never existed. And
mm,
people walk on the grass and their benches and you sit, but there's no sign of Hitler ever having been there
mm,
in Berlin. So the whole town of Berlin has been incredible dealing with the past, and most of
mhm.
Germany too. My town is
Yeah.
a little bit backward, but I had
Mm.
the archivist from my town stay with me a little bit in Florida, so we got to know each other a little bit better.
Well, so was Bottrop kind of a smaller town and like
Yeah,
similar to a
it's
yeah.
near to Essen. Remember Essen?
Mhm.
It's where all the ammunition factories were,
Mm.
and all the big guns were made there. And,
Is it similar to America how like the smaller the town, the more conservative, like how in America it's like it's going to be more liberal when you go to like a city?
probably. Bottrop is a city, but they didn't know how, because I was very, I was attacking them all through those years. I was writing bad things about Bottrop, how they hadn't changed and how great it was, and they're trying to build a new town, and they try and uplift the town, and the cow force is still there that belonged to the Meyer family. The Germans own it now, and so those kind of people all got together and said, "What's this woman coming from America now to hustle us?" So it wasn't very popular. But I stuck with it. Eventually, I got to make my speech over there. It was fully attended and couldn't get enough space for people to get in.
Wow. Was your head spinning, going through that experience, or what was it like for you?
Yeah, it was a very important moment for me. Very, very important.
Yeah. I'm sure very moving. When you described the parking lot, where Hitler's bunker, I said that Hitler's bunker was. It reminded me of like how in America right now there's all this debate. I guess it's kind of died down, but there's been a lot of debate about the Confederate monuments and things. And like even in Asheville, they had this statue, this obelisk in the middle of town. The Vance Monument was this former governor who had owned slaves. And so it's interesting because we were talking about how Angela Merkel had intervened to let your book be read, but at the same time wiping away the memorials to Hitler. So would you say like would you say that Angela Merkel's position was that we should learn about the Holocaust, but just not glorify it, celebrate those figures?
Absolutely, yes, totally
Okay.
right. We have to learn about it and read about it and study it and learn the consequences. I mean, we all have free choices. We can do what we like, but we are not free from the effect of our choices. What actually happens to us when we make those choices.
Yeah.
So Germany came through a very hard time after the war, but they came through in the right way due to Angela Merkel.
Do you feel proud to be German now?
I like what's going on in Germany now. It's very liberal. It's much more liberal than here. The animal rights community is very big over there. DXE is over there. They're doing demonstrations in Berlin and all over. And many, many vegan restaurants. It's very vegan friendly and very modern, very modern thinking, and I'm happy with Germany now.
Do you think that's because of what happened in the 30s and 40s? Do you think that it's sort of like a backlash to what had happened?
Yeah, the Germans worked through it, and through the right leadership. That's why it's very important who we have as our leaders.
Yeah.
To bring us forward. And they have worked through it, and it came out the right way at the other end. It's probably the most kindest country now to immigrants. When they had all these refugees in Syria, Angela Merkel took them all in. They opened the airport and made the tarmac all a city full of tents for all these millions of refugees from Syria. She took them in. She would not turn anyone away. So Germany did penance and worked through it. And they do good. And that's what's same thing I've been trying to do.
Hmm.
When we come from this kind of history, we have to be extra good. We have to work extra hard. And
Hmm.
Germany did that.
Yeah, I I feel like that's a good lesson, just that things can change.
Things
Um,
can definitely change.
yeah, and will change.
Yes,
So I mean, it's a good reason to never get too high and never get too low, because things can
exactly.
change in a hurry. Um,
Like they say, you are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it.
mhm.
We have to, we can't get overwhelmed by the amount of work we still have to do, but we can't abandon it. We still have to keep fighting
Mm.
every day.
Yeah, that's a great quote for the animal rights movement, because yeah, people can sometimes feel overwhelmed by the enormity of the problem
Yeah,
and burn themselves out and abandon it, or get too like I do notice that it's great when you're an animal rights activist to get wins, somewhere shuts down or stops doing fur or something. But um if you're not getting wins, I mean, obviously you know do your best to get wins, but it you shouldn't feel too discouraged by not getting it, because it is going to be a long battle, a long road. um but yeah, like you said, I mean, you grew up in Nazi Germany and you spent your life ashamed of being German, and when I asked you now, you said, I like Germany now, Germany's doing good. So it's a complete turnaround.
yeah.
Yeah. um Yeah. Well, I think those are my questions about the book. I think we went through quite a bit of it, and I don't want to tell people literally everything in the book, because I do want them to read it. But is there anything that you think that we didn't cover that we should cover?
Um, no, you're very, very good. I felt very at ease answering your questions.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I just would like to say at the end, like I always say at the end of my speeches, walk gently on this planet in sandals of love.
Walk
Correct.
gently on this planet and send
Walk
lots of
gently
love.
on the planet in sandals of love.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And yeah, and I just want to say, you and I, like you said, our conversations are so easy, that we can always have more of them. So,
Thank you.
we can, yeah, we can. I
Thank
mean,
you,
we can come
Jeremy.
on. Of
You're my
course,
friend.
yeah, yeah, of course, and yeah, we can talk about what's going on in the animal rights movement. We can do more podcast episodes. So, yeah, but you're the first person that I've had on the show twice. I've talked to this other person, who had exposed the sled dog industry, what he had seen in the sled dog industry. Probably going to have him back on the program too, because he said that we didn't really get to everything that he wanted to talk about. But yeah, I really like the idea of having guests come on more than once and come back. And um, yeah, we're definitely good friends. The few conversations that we've had, we have a easy communication style.
But look at
Um,
our background, so the green there.
yeah, green.
Look at the green.
Yeah, green there, red over there. Wait, how do I do it? There.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you painted that, didn't you? You told me you.
yeah, I painted that. We'll show the whole thing. San
Yeah,
Francisco, burning. Can I show you the whole thing?
yeah, that's amazing. So you're very talented
Not
in
at
many
all.
ways. Well, that's pretty cool.
I'm just muddling through life. That's it.
Well, you're swimming every day. You're
I'm
doing
a day.
animal rights activism. Yeah,
I,
and
I
it's
can
amazing.
I can cook well.
Yeah, you can cook well, you said too. Oh,
Yeah,
nice. Yeah,
I do nice vegan food.
yeah. Always vegan food. Yeah,
Even my dog is vegan. Spirit is vegan.
Spirit is vegan. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and very healthy too.
yeah. She doesn't shed. Very
Mm,
very good for her brown rice and
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
veggies.
Yeah, Bramble, the border collie, was for a long time the longest living dog that ever lived. I think Bramble was overtaken by an older dog, but Bramble ate nothing but lentils, I think, pretty much. So Bramble was a vegan dog
Oh, how
and
cool.
lived to something like 27 years old, which is
Wow.
incredible. So yeah, dogs can definitely be vegan and be healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at the picture now behind the sun there. It's kind of like
What's that?
the red of the picture behind. I can see it better.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's nice. Yeah. All right. Well, Liesel, it's been so lovely talking to you again. And so we'll have more conversations, I'm sure, in the future. But I would
Say hi
really
to your
love,
mom too.
I will, I will. And you know what? I might have to have you on in a few weeks because she said, when I said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to talk to Liesel again," and she was like, "Oh, when are you doing that? Because I might have questions." And
She can just call me on the phone.
yeah, and she told me just now, she asked me, "Oh, are you interviewing Liesel?" I said, "Yeah," and she said, "I'm at page 100." So she made it to page 100.
All right.
Yeah.
Tell her I say hi and
Yeah, I will do. I'll tell her to reach out to you because I think she was really inspired by your story.
take care, Jeremy.
Okay, you too.
You cool.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Liesel.
Thank you.